Hi, we're here at the Brand Safety Summit EMEA. Today I'm here with Deborah Gbadamosi. Thank you for joining us, Deborah.
Thank you for having me.
So I guess let's start off with a little bit, tell us your story, how you ended up in media, and a little bit about your role, if that's okay.
Oh, okay. How I ended up in media, that's fun. So I wanted to be an actress, and my mum was like, don't be ridiculous, get a real job. So I went to university and got a degree in computing and then moved into advertising, and here I am. So yeah, I kind of fell into it, but it's not been a bad fall, let's face it. It's been a pretty good ride.
Absolutely.
And what I'm currently doing now is, I work for Mindshare in the worldwide team looking after global brands. And what I do as a kind of purpose-driven, my thing that kind of propels me to want to make the industry a better place is all driven around making it more inclusive and making it more accessible in terms of the way advertisers connect to underrepresented consumers.
Okay, and is that something you're doing within Mindshare, or is that outside of Mindshare?
So it actually started off in Mindshare, yes. It started off in Mindshare. And then after a few years, I then moved to a company called Brand Advance, who specialise entirely in underrepresented audiences and connecting brands to underrepresented audiences. And then I went back to Mindshare, but as part of my time at Brand Advance, we started to work with ISPA, with TAG, with the Brand Safety Institute, with Meta, to come together to create an alliance called the Progressive Media Council. And as part of that, we started to focus on how to make minority-owned and operated publishers have more inclusion in inclusion lists. If you work with an agency, they have lots of lists which include the publishers that they work with that are brand safe. They've got trusted journalism. They have brand safe environments. The content is suitable, and all of those areas are obviously, and rightly so, well revered. Right? We need that, but that list tends to be quite exclusive, even though it's inclusive. Yeah. And so the idea with the Progressive Media Council is to try to create a place for minority-owned and operated publishers to be able to get onto those inclusion lists. And obviously that means that they need to raise their own game. You've got to make sure if you're a publisher, an independent publisher of any form, that you're TAG verified, you're ABC verified, that your content is brand safe. And so we came together to find a way to make that happen, because actually verification is expensive, it's labor intense, and it's quite technically challenging. So if you are, one-man band who's got a nice platform that's doing well for itself, the cost and the resource needed to be able to become verified can be unobtainable. And that means that you can't then become part of an agency's roster in the brand inclusion roster, and that also means that you're not getting any shares of the ad revenue, right? Yeah. And so you're seeing lots of really good publications that are minority owned going to the wall because they just don't have enough revenue coming in to be able to sustain their business.
I guess we saw that with Galdem last year.
Yes,
they went bankrupt, right?
Precisely that, because ad revenue is just not flowing their way. Not enough of it is flowing their way.
So then, within the Progressive Media Initiative or Progressive Media Project, whatever you call it, are you then, the group of you that are in it, are you reaching out to the publishers yourselves and working with them on all the things that you just outlined, or are they coming to you? How's that?
It's
working.
What we've done first of all is to try and set up a platform, which is a website. Platform's a hub. That's a nice name for a website, which sits on the Brand Safety Institute's website. So it's a section on their website, and within that we have a list of resources. So those resources are geared towards agencies and to media owners, or minority owned and operated. and basically gives you, if you're an agency, it shows you what types of diverse publications you could be working with. And if you're a publication, it shows you how you can connect to TAG and get access to the support, because they are offering support to these minority owned and operated publishers for free. So, that's huge, because it's an expensive affair, and they're saying, look, we want to put our money where our mouth is and give you the access. And then along there's an overall resource with case studies, with planning principles, with things like keyword checklists, like not block lists, but check your block lists. And if you've got any of these words on here, get rid, because actually you're blocking a whole collection of audiences, and then it shows you what percentage of audience you're blocking. So you could actually unlock more audiences if you remove some of these keywords. Some are really outdated. Some of them are 4 or 5, 6, 7 years old, which reflect a moment in time when they needed to be there, but that time has passed. That situation is over. You don't need to have that keyword on there anymore. And if you just get rid of it, I mean, let me give you a good example. I think I've seen a keyword block list where Manchester and Ariana Grande were like on those block lists. And you're like, what? That was like 7 years ago or something. Like, why are we still referencing that as a thing to block? So imagine all the audiences in Manchester that you're not reaching because you've got that word on there, or all the people that are Ariana Grande fans that you can't get access to, who also, by the way, have spending power. So it's about removing those words that don't really make any sense anymore. Anyway, that's a small part of it. So those are the kind of resources that sit on that platform, and then the next phase of that will be, as you said, to kind of start reaching out to some of those publishers and saying to them, look, do you need support to become TAG verified? Do you need support around brand safety? The biggest part that we've done, though, really, is to clarify what does minority owned and operated mean, because sometimes you get content that's created for an audience but not by the audience. So there's an example I heard of. I don't remember the name of the site, and I'm not trying to name drop, so I'm not going to do that. But it was geared towards menopausal women, but it was a site that was owned by 2 men. Right, so it's like, yes, however, I mean, I appreciate the fact that you're switched on to the situation, but equally, like, for it to have authentic content and to resonate properly, then it should also include journalists from women of a certain age who can relate, who can talk about those stories. So we've put in 3 criteria to help agencies, brands, whoever, to know whether or not they're working with a minority owned and operated publisher, and that is, it must be 51% owned Class A shares, that you should have content that is written by and for the community that you're serving, or at least have content that is written by the community that you're trying to serve. So if you hit 1 or all 3 of those, then you would be classified as minority owned and operated, and then we would then work with you to see where you are on your tech journey to becoming brand safe.
Okay, great. That's such an interesting point that you're saying, the content created for an audience but not actually made by that audience. For me, it feels like the idea of like, oh, we're going to make space for you to have a voice, but under our terms. Like,
correct.
Like we get to decide then what actually gets put out. Yeah.
And I mean, it can happen in so many different ways. But the idea is that we just sort of create a space where everybody can play. Everybody's got equal access, especially to generating revenue and helping underserved business owners to thrive, right?
And amplify their voices.
Right, exactly.
So you mentioned Meta is involved in the progressive media. So do you think, have you spoken to any other platforms, or do you think any of the other platforms are engaging in this cause as much as they should be?
Do you know, I mean, I wouldn't want to say they're not, because everybody, I'm sure, has got aspects to their business that's focused on trying to improve diversity, accessibility, etc. We just happen to be working with Meta because we have a good relationship with the person that's responsible for brand safety. So, she was more than happy to jump in and get involved, and so that's kind of where that evolved from. But we are more than open to having anyone else join us. There's no restrictions here. We are inclusive. More than open to having any conversations with anyone who wants to get involved and help to kind of make this place in a more level playing field.
And are you seeing the appetite come from the brands now to engage with the list that you're creating? Like, are the brands also asking for this, or are you, as we talked about before, like you have to interrogate the brief and just make sure it's a part of everything? It shouldn't be a request. But are the brands at Mindshare, and I suppose second part of that question would be, have you taken it outside of Mindshare and Group M? Are you seeing the brands asking for it and wanting to engage with it?
Okay, so putting Mindshare, Group M to one side, because this kind of it was born outside of that space,
okay.
Right? And just talking more generally, just in terms of what we've seen in general across the world, across brands, there were big pledges that were made, right? I think it was around $748 million was pledged to be put into minority-owned and operated publishers, and in the last 3 years, less than 2% of that has actually been delivered, right? So, which is again why certain companies are no longer around, because they just haven't been able to sustain themselves. They haven't received any of the advertising budget. So I think there's definitely intention there, and that brands want to do the right thing, but we are living in austere times, and that affects brands as well. So they also have to make choiceful decisions about where they spend their money. And if it push comes to shove, they're going to stick with what they know. And I get that. I definitely do get that. But I do think that if we adopt a change mindset or a growth mindset, then we start to think about how else we can spend that money to help drive growth and help get the economy back to where it needs to be. And a lot of that actually sits in trying to reach audiences that you don't normally engage with, because they have got spending power. Arguably they're spending the money anyway, right? But would they spend more if they were being actively spoken to, or could see your brand? It was put in front of them. I think I spoke about it yesterday. Yeah. My own personal experience, I don't reveal my age, but as a woman of color of a certain age, I don't see advertising. Nobody's targeting me because I'm not an interesting audience for them. I'm not Gen Z, I'm not millennial, I'm just not fitting into that box. And so I get long tail advertising. God bless long tail, otherwise I get nothing. But equally, I also have disposable income, and I like to think that I don't necessarily look my age, so that would imply that I also have a younger mindset. I'm just saying, potentially.
I would agree.
Definitely. So there's if there's one of me, there's more of me. And if there's more of me, then there's an archetype. And if there's an archetype, then there's an audience segment waiting to be targeted. And then you could unlock some additional revenue because you're reaching a new audience. Because I don't know what I don't know about brands. I just know the ones I know and the ones that I like. I like luxury fashion. I like nice cars. I like luxury travel, but I have to really search for it because it's not being put in front of me on a regular basis, which is crazy.
It's wild. And people are willing to pay a premium to reach Gen Zs.
Right?
But they don't have any
we
money.
love you Gen Zs, we do, but you're broke. So,
famously so.
And they like to, and they're very discerning. And in fact, Gen Zs are the tastemakers now, right? They are the ones that are saying, I will spend my money with the brands that recognize and acknowledge me. Because Gen Zs are going to grow up, and already they're 27, right? So already they're moving into corporate world. They are starting to take on more important roles. They will soon be the CEOs of the next generation of brands, and most likely their own brands, and they will remember the people that targeted them or didn't target their mom, or didn't look after the community, didn't protect the planet. So you have to respect the fact that As much as we want to, avoid being exclusive or avoid just targeting certain communities, we have to take everybody into the consideration at the same time. So I get targeting Gen Zs, I understand that, but there's also another community. Europe is an aging community. The average age of Europe is 47, right? And their disposable income is, I think it's like, I'm going to make it up, so I won't say, but they have a huge disposable income, and again, not really being spoken to.
Yeah, absolutely. That's mad to think that they I didn't know that the national age, sorry, the EMEA age is
average age 47.
47.
Yeah, one of the oldest communities in the world, like age-wise. I think Japan has got as an aging community. There are certain markets that have older demographic, and that also you look at when you say mature market, that literally is not just in financially mature and economically mature, but also just the average age of the consumers as well. So it's important to target everyone, is the point.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Deborah, for chatting to us today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.